Hello and welcome to another super special episode of the Killer Author Club. We are here tonight with the one, the only, the fabulous Lisa Gardner, here to answer all your burning questions about our brand new New York Times bestselling thriller, Still See You Everywhere. We have tons to talk about, so grab your cocktail, your list of questions, and we will see you right back here in 17 seconds.
Thought you really loved me, guess I was wrong. Thought you'd never leave me, guess I was dumb. Waited like forever to be your plus one, but I guess you were done.
Hello to all our new members and to the OGs on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, wherever you are watching. We are so happy to have you here. I am Killer Kimberly Bell, and with me tonight is Killer Kara Ruda. Killer Heather Gudenkopf is not with us tonight as she's busy celebrating the release of her own fabulous novel, Everyone is Watching, and you definitely need to run out and get yourself a copy at your favorite indie bookseller because it is Big Brother meets Clue. It is utterly original and fabulous. And make sure to check out her episode on killerauthorclub.com as well. She was on last week. But as much as we miss Heather, we are so excited to be welcoming Lisa Gardner to the clubhouse to talk Still See You Everywhere, her fantastic new book, which was an instant New York Times bestseller. And we are going to be talking about all things killing of the fictional kind, of course. Make sure to drop your questions for Lisa in the comments, and Kara will be scouring them to ask of our killer guest. Kara, would you please do the honors?
I would love to. Lisa Gardner is the #1 New York Times best-selling thriller novelist with over 30 million copies of her books in print, 30 million in print worldwide, and published in over 30 languages. That's incredible. A self-described research junkie, Lisa has transformed her interest in police procedures and criminal minds into a streak of internationally acclaimed novels. Her novel, The Neighbor, won Best Hardcover Novel from the International Thriller Writers, and she has also been honored for her work with animal rescue and at-risk children. An avid hiker, gardener, and cribbage player, Lisa lives with her family in New England. Still See You Everywhere is her 28th book and hit the New York Times straight out of the gate. Congratulations, Lisa, and welcome to the Killer Author Club.
Thank you so much. Anything with killer in the title is quite my jam. So thank you very much for having me here.
We love that. We really only want killers here. So we're glad you're here. And 30 million copies, holy smokes. Gosh, can you even get your mind around that?
Yeah, that's one of those things that who knew? And especially, I grew up in a small rural community in Oregon, never met an editor, an author, an agent. It's all kind of surreal to me. Every now and then I kind of look behind me where's the real author? Because this can't be it.
It's amazing, and you deserve all of that. It's incredible. Okay, so we're going to dive into the book in great detail in a minute. But for now, can you give us the elevator pitch, please?
Okay, so Still See You Everywhere is the third Frankie Elkin book. She is an expert on working missing persons cold cases, but even this is bizarre by her accounts when she is summoned to death row by a female serial killer who's going to die in 3 weeks' time, who has just received word that her long-lost sister, who was kidnapped 15 years ago, might still be alive, and her dying wish is that Frankie finds her.
Wow. That's really cool.
Because there's nothing else like a dying wish on death row.
I think you're allowed to have them when you're on death row. Okay, you guys, we have lots of questions for Lisa, and a reminder, everybody drop questions over there and I will get to them, I promise. Okay, but first it's time to talk about this episode's special drink. Kimberly.
Yes, so as you guys know, the killers love our cocktails, mocktails, tasty drinks. So every episode we ask our killer guests to come equipped with their favorite. And Lisa chose the greatest drink ever. It is called Liquid Death.
Yeah,
Lisa,
who does not want liquid death, okay?
Do you want to tell us about this cocktail?
This is one of my favorite things ever. Okay, except I can't open mine with my fingernails, but it is basically flavored sparkling water that is ridiculously overpriced because it is liquid death and it will murder
It will
you.
kill your wallet.
And it has the best packaging with skulls and it's silver. And I have to admit, I don't mind paying for it because it just makes me feel special and cool. So, liquid death to everyone.
I love it. Cheers.
And that makes me want to have some of that. Do they sell it everywhere? Do you know? Like, have you gotten liquid death all over the country or just?
Yeah. I think California actually is one of the places you can find it the most.
Awesome.
But
Okay.
you can order it in like some of the, I don't know, gas stations, convenience stores, places like that.
Okay, because I've never seen it. It's awesome.
Yeah, okay. The bubbles of my liquid death now are making me have to cough. Liquid death has some side effects.
Yeah. That is not what we like to see on the show. So you just get yourself together. The Killers and I started a Killer Author Club 2 years ago so that readers like you guys can interact with some of the best suspense and thriller authors in the business. Our spring lineup includes superstars like Lisa Scolini. Yes.
Truth about the Devlins. Yay.
Yay. Okay. Kirsten Moglin, Chris B, as I call him, because I don't know how to say his last name, Wanda Morris, Fox, Rachel Hazel Hall, and so many more. Dates, times, past episodes, and much more can be found at killerauthorclub.com. But tonight we're here to talk about Still See You Everywhere, the third book in the Lisa Frankie Elkins series. Okay, an instant New York Times bestseller and an Amazon editor's pick. Here's what the readers are saying on Goodreads. This might be the third book in the Frankie Elkins series, but it was my favorite so far. Lisa Gardner is such a trusted author for me. She always delivers, and this one was fantastic. Fast-paced, extremely well-written, and incredibly entertaining. This thriller was absolutely unputdownable. And according to Booklist, Gardner skillfully weaves threats into this pitch-perfect variation of the locked room mystery, pulling missing person finder Frankie Elkin against an untamed tropical environment, a raging serial killer, a diabolical saboteur, and her own misleading tunnel vision. Gardner's Frankie Elkin series gets more magnetizing with each installment. Wow. So that's a little bit of praise. There's more
about myself because no author does. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's great. And you deserve it all. It's so cool. Okay, and we really are so honored to have you here tonight. Anyway, all right, so your question, the killer question of the evening is, Lisa, why do you kill?
Okay, and the answer is, I love logistics. I mean, that's what murder is. Remember what everyone tells you? It's not doing the crime, it's getting away with the crime. Mm-hmm. How you get caught, covering it up. And it's so much fun writing the police procedures and even how Frankie Elkin has to think of this. Whatever bad thing happened, how? What steps had to happen? It's all logistics. It's all part of a puzzle. And it's funny because I'm the only English literature, liberal arts person in my family. Everyone else is engineering and math. But I'm like, murder actually is somewhat a feat of engineering. I mean, getting away with killing, it's all that same kind of, same mental functions. And it pleases me every time I can come up with the perfect murder. And I will tell you, having interviewed many, many law enforcement officers, they're obsessed with getting away with the perfect murder as well.
Wow.
So they give you talk to them and they give you ideas?
Well, yeah, this is something I learned early on in my career. I was writing a book where an FBI profiler and I had kidnapped a girl, and I was talking to the Oregon State Police, and they kept solving my kidnapping by page 4. And I'm like, I kind of need more pages.
300 and some.
Yeah. So finally I was like, how would you kidnap her? By the time they were done, I'm like, okay, I'm sold. That's the way to go. And 30 books later, 28 books later, I'm very popular among my friends. I mean, I'm the one that's going to provide an alibi, help hide the body, and bail money is tax deductible.
So how many different sources like that do you have? Like when you're working on a book like this, do you have like a go-to police source, or do you bring in a lot of different experts?
Well, yes and no, because I think if you're a writer, it takes a year to develop a book. And so you need something that's new and fresh and interesting to you. So like Frankie Elkin for Still See You Everywhere, going to this remote atoll in the Pacific, where she's surrounded by naturalists and cooks and engineers and coconut crabs and, diabolical wolf spiders. Yeah, Never done that before. So there was no one really on speed dial for that. Though, I did hide a body, and I do have a go-to at the body farm. So that was useful. So it's this kind of combination of things. But I think part of being a novelist is following your curiosity and not being afraid to pick up the phone and dial complete strangers and say, so I write about murder. Can you help me?
Can you help me get away with one?
I know. Yeah. I know. I was asking my doctor something like that, and he's like, I am not going to tell you that. I'm like, hey, no, it's for fiction. He's like, somebody could take my license. I'm like, no, they can't. You're fine.
I am the go-to person for poisons for exactly that reason. She doesn't want to, she's like, I'll tell you anything you want, but you can't trace it back to me.
Right. Yeah. So he's like, no, I can't tell you that. I'm like, oh, for heaven's sakes. Yeah. So you have to have, like, I need to find somebody, undercover that will tell me these things. Yeah. Yeah. Network's important.
So back to what you were saying before, when you were saying, follow your curiosity and when you're coming up with these ideas for a book. So what comes then first? Do you think about like the crime and how the character's going to get away with it or almost get away with it? Or do you start with, a character like Frankie and just kind of mold a crime around her story? Like, where does it start?
90% of the time for me, it is the crime. But because I've been doing the Frankie books, we already know it's missing persons. Still See You Everywhere is different for me. It actually really started from the location. I mean, purely personally, not intending it for a book at all. I had the opportunity to go to this remote island in the Pacific where the Nature Conservancy has a research camp. I mean, you're off the grid, you're 2 weeks from civilization. It's 12 people doing ecological reclamation. So I was really there just for personal reasons. But the minute you land on this, tiny crushed coral reef runway, and you start to understand you're so remote, you have to have a doctor's note. They don't want you to have an appendix. There's all sorts of rules because you're each other's backup. And you realize it's not just that you're so far away from everything. These people are strangers to each other. I mean, they're all contract employees cycling through here. And, there's no chance of rescue. There's no hope of escape. And it was
there are a million stories.
You have to use this for evil. You cannot use it. Was too good an opportunity to waste. I went to paradise and I just started killing people. I couldn't help myself.
So did anything weird happen when you were on this island? Like, did a storm blow in?
Oh yeah. Well, one, the coconut crabs were absolutely totally terrifying. I had no idea what they were. And they're huge. They're bigger than my dogs. And they come out at night and they're extremely territorial. And
so they're real?
Oh, they're real. Yeah. And if they don't want you to go someplace, you do not go someplace. I mean, they're like the Incredible Hulk of crabs.
They stop you? What do they do? Put their little pinchers up?
Oh yeah. They get really mad and they have a lot of attitude and they're big. Like I wouldn't even try to step over one. They're that big. I mean, they're bigger than my dogs. So, and then we're supposed to be there for 5 days because this is, hard to access and they're flying food and everything in and they don't really want guests for that long, even, educational purposes. So the day we're supposed to fly out, there's a huge storm.
Of course.
Plane cannot land. It will come back and try in 3 days. It's also the plane with the food.
I was going to say, what happens if you run out of food and water?
Well, we totally
you eat the killer crabs.
That was the first stroke. And then we were sent fishing. And the way it works when you try to go back to nature, which so few of us do anymore, we went out on the ocean and we came across hundreds of dolphins sleeping. So you see their dorsal fins and they're just rocking in the water. We got to jump in and swim with them. And then they woke up and they swam with the boat and played in the wake. And we got to touch them with our toes. It was absolutely magical. And then we caught a yellowfin tuna and clubbed it to death for dinner.
Ate it. You were there but you were there officially as research.
Yeah. Well,
everybody
was
knew
there for
that...
education. And then, it's a research station. It's not an inhabited atoll because there's no fresh water.
Right.
So there's a cistern. You can catch rainwater.
Okay.
Solar for some electricity needs. But, everything is very carefully rationed, as you can imagine. And it was very interesting learning the psychology of all of that. When you're bringing together a group of strangers and they're subbing in and out at different cycles, and it's everything from, the actual ecologists and naturalists to the support staff, engineers, the boat expert, the 2 cooks who will tell you the most important people in the camp. How do you hold that together?
Mm-hmm.
That level of isolation, boredom, bad weather, things break, things don't work, you run out of food, things spoil. How do you keep that morale and those dynamics going? I found it completely fascinating.
And especially like the psychology of a group. And if you have 1 or 2 people in the group who are either evil or carrying secrets or, are there for the wrong reason.
I kind of considered it, The Shining as something. I mean, isn't that? And I was like, one person goes toxic and they're like, it's bad. I'm like,
Right.
And then you're stuck on the island with them. And there you go. There's your book.
Yeah. See, perfect.
So how long from when you were there on that island did you decide right when you were there, like, this is where I'm going to set my next book? Or did you go back home and after you survived?
I knew I would end up using it for a location. And then by the time I got home and started thinking about what I wanted to do next, it was just too good not to be the next location.
Yeah.
And it was fun for Frankie Elkin because we've seen her in like more urban environments, and then she was in the mountains. And now, I'm not going to lie, the hardest thing for me in Paradise was 85% humidity. I mean, the sheets are wet, the towels are wet, you're wet. By day 3, I did want to commit murder.
And what about the bugs? That would make me want to commit murder.
They weren't too bad. There were some mosquitoes, but the spiders were real. So in my little rustic cabin, because Frankie gets them as roommates, I had a wolf spider, which is huge, and lived on the ceiling. And it and I had a lot of discussions that it needed to be in there. And, and then at night it became 3D. Oh. It would hunt geckos, which didn't make me feel better about things. And then outside I had all my crab roommates, including Crabby, who was actually really cute and adorable. But the coconut crabs eat the other crabs. So you'd like go out at night and the coconut crabs would be roaming like, these big, huge bullies. And I'd come like creeping back to my cabin to poor little Crabby. And I'm like, stay there. It's too late.
Bring him inside.
Because every now and then you'd see them get a victim and drag them like, flailing into, and I will kill as many people as you want, but that made me sad.
I might have to kill a killer crab if it comes after me with its like. I can do that. Okay, let's go back to the body farm.
Yeah,
I heard body farm and I was like, I'm writing that down. We're coming back to that one.
Yeah.
So I had an opportunity years ago when I was researching a different book where I wanted to determine time of death on, skeletal remains. And I wanted them to be burned. And I wanted there to be a reason why they might have some confusion about the time of death. Like it wouldn't be readily apparent. So I cold called the body farm because, what else are you going to do when you need these things?
Like, what do you look up in the yellow pages? Body farm?
Yeah, actually, you
really
Google body farm. Yeah, there's actually several of them now, but the University of Tennessee Department of Anthropology is the most famous one. Asked if I could come visit, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't do that. We're a research facility." And then there's kind of this long pause. I'm like, "Could I come research?" And they're like, "Okay, that we do." So I spent a couple days there, and it was really amazing. I mean, I didn't know what I would think. I've not seen dead bodies outside of what you would think in a funeral parlor, and it is Death's Acre. There are hundreds of corpses, and there's hanging, and there's burials, and there's submersions, and I was quite worried that I would not be able to handle it. But they have this really, it's a hallowed ground for them. I mean, they're very respectful of the work they do, and people donated their remains for this work to be done. And that kind of air of reverence made it quite bearable because it is Tennessee and it's hot and there was corpses everywhere.
Yeah.
So
And is it a research facility for police?
They do a lot of work for the police. Technically, it's for the Department of Anthropology. So they're learning time of death. So one of the biggest things that came from the body farm that most of us know is determining time. They actually call it time since death, using insect activity.
Mm.
An etymologist who was at the body farm and noticed that was a variable. There were always insects, and started to realize, from the life cycle of blowflies, that would actually be one way you could time it. But they also get like the FBI, the police calling them saying, okay, we've had this really crazy, discovery of remains, and the conditions are so weird, we don't know how to determine. And they will actually recreate what has happened in a piece of the property to basically figure out exactly how long it takes to end up with skeletal remains. I mean, it's the kind of stuff, and you got to love it as suspense novelists and readers, where the truth is so much cooler than fiction. Like, I mean, there's so many things they told me. It's like, I can't even use this because no one will believe it.
Right.
And that's when you have a really great job.
Yeah.
And a really good story, because I mean, that's all the comments too. Like, we're all going, wow.
I know, right? Like, what?
Yeah.
Stories.
Remains found on this atoll. That's not giving too much away. So, I mean, I think I know what I'm doing now because I've been to the body farm. So I write this whole scene, and then I'm like, the little voice in the back of your head, you really are stupid. You should check this. So I emailed this to them, and I'm like, look what I did, and this is how it's going to be. And I get back, no, none of that's true. I'm like, okay, so would you like to tell me how the skeleton would actually look? How you would? And yeah, they are definitely way smarter than I am. Never confuse yourself with the expert.
Yeah. Wow. So they'll just like say, I don't want any details, but they'll just tell you like, no, that's wrong, and then
yeah. I mean, I don't send them a novel. They're never doing that. I send like a couple paragraphs. This is how it's going to look. And they're like, yeah, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. I really thought the bones should be white. And they're like, no.
But that's a great contact to have as a, thriller writer.
Well, they're in general, as a source, educational institutions, people who's, I once cold called a tracker because he wrote an article for SWAT magazine on tracking criminals. And I'm like, this is fascinating to me, how to using like the old school methods, because technology really does fail more often than not.
Right.
But, I'm not DEA or FBI or anything. Would you be willing to talk about it with me? And he's kind of like, well, I guess. He's like, my goal's to inform. And if you're going to put it in a book that will educate people, I'm like, let's hope so.
If you help me get it right.
Right. He spent days with me. But again, there's a lot of people out there. They want to share what they know, and they want those of us to learn what matters. And so that's, you approach it with respect. And as we're all trying to get better educated all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's great. I love that. I have to work on my approach, apparently. I keep scaring people off. No, I'm not going to talk about murder.
What you say is, you will be the hero of my novel. I use this book too with the FBI healthcare fraud, and it turns out they're very competitive with the profilers. And this is when, criminal profilers were huge. Yeah. And they're like, wait, it's going to be about the healthcare fraud squad. I'm like, yes. They're like, not the profilers. I'm like, true. They're like, okay, we're the heroes. We get the girl. We solve the day. We get sex. I'm like, okay, you're in.
Girl.
But they were kind of a little pissed off that the profilers were getting to have all the fun, And they'll have
I love that.
Built the FBI. Come on.
So which do you like better, the actual research or the writing?
Oh, the research, absolutely.
Yeah. Sounds way more fun. Writing is a slog.
Writing is hard, and you take a lot of really great information. And what is it, like Hemingway say? You can only use the tip.
Yeah. Because you have all this stuff and you got to condense it down. Like you said, you send them 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, most of what you learn, you'll never use because it's technical. And that's, if you want to have pacing. And I'm not writing about characters that are those kinds of experts. So it would be weird, like if Frankie suddenly spouted to you, well, as a matter of fact.
Those would not be right. Yeah. Well, and that's the true too. But because you have all that knowledge in your head and you've learned it all, then when you're writing it, you're able to condense it so that we all, when we're reading it, feel like it's real and true. And it is. But that's kind of, you're like the filter to all of that for us, which is amazing.
Well, so I joke I'm the Goldilocks writer. So the first draft, which heaven help, thank God, no one reads them. I have to be the good student. and I like have to regurgitate everything I've learned. And here's 12 pages on discovering a skeleton. And then the second draft, you realize that's wrong. So I get down to 2 sentences on how to just find a skeleton. And then third draft, you're like, let's try maybe a page and a half, you know?
Yeah. And putting it in normal, like Frankie would say it language, right? Which also is not easy at all. But speaking of Frankie, so this is her third book, but it can be read as a standalone.
Yes,
or no?
I think that's important because we all read things out of sequence and discover new authors, new series non-sequentially.
Right. Yeah. Good. I read it as a standalone. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I want to go back and read the first 2.
I hope
I
you
know. Exactly.
I love it. All right. We are already.
I know.
I know.
I didn't even get any questions from the. I'm sorry, you guys. It was just we were like talking, and it was so interesting.
This is what happens when you introduce the body farm. Everything else just
know.
Everything goes out the window, and those crabs, the coconut crabs.
Yeah. Google them. So I was on book tour, and I would start it by, okay, I'm just going to tell you right now before I'm done, you're going to want to look up a picture of a coconut crab. And you could just hear the various gasps among the audience as people found the photos. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
It's like she wasn't kidding.
No, she's not kidding. I'm not looking at them, by the way. I'm not going to look.
Good news, they're not
That's
in
what I'm doing as
California.
soon as
You're
we
safe.
hang up. So you guys, Lisa is giving away 3 copies of Still See You Everywhere tonight to 3 lucky U.S. Killer Author Club viewers. It doesn't matter if you're watching us on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. We scour the comments everywhere we stream, but please make sure to shout out where you're from so we know. And the question is, fill in the blank. Lisa has been honored for her work with at-risk children and...
I know the answer. I know the answer.
What could it be?
What could it be?
All right. So drop your answer in the comments.
Okay, and you guys, the killers love indies, and we want to support them in any way we can. That's why we partner with bookshop.org and have our very own Killer Author Club store on their website, where you can find all of our books and some fun killer guests from the past and some fun lists the 3 of us had put together. We'll be dropping that link in the comments. But in the meantime, and speaking of indies, Lisa has selected White Birch Books in North Conway, New Hampshire as her favorite indie. Lisa, can you tell us about this special bookstore?
So they're in my backyard, and they've been around forever. And they're one of those great, it's like a Victorian village, and you go house and you go in, and the staff always has the great recommendations and what they love. And every single time I'm like, I'm going to buy one book. I'm going to buy one book. And every time I buy about a dozen, and I'm always happy. It always works out great. They're that great community, reader focused. If you go in there and say, this is what I like, they will set you up. And that's what we love.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I just dropped the link to Lisa's book in the comments. So as much as we would love to invite every amazing killer author to be featured on our shows, there are so many fantastic authors out there and so many fantastic books. But we can't let this evening go by without celebrating 2 very special authors, both of whom are offering up a giveaway of their brand new release. First up, let's see if I can do this and talk at the same time. Probably not. Never Trust the Husband. Ooh, look at that. By Jessica Payne, came out on March 5th, and she is giving away a copy to a lucky U.S. winner. You look so happy in your wedding photo, gazing at your perfect new husband. You choose to ignore the warning signs, but he hid more than one secret from you, and now he's gotten away with your murder. Never trust the husband.
That sounds fabulous.
Right? And then we also have Little Underworld by Chris Harding Thornton. Came out on March 12th, and 2 copies are up for grabs to 2 U.S. readers. Omaha, 1930. After a PI murders a man, he makes a deal with local crooked cop to take down a candidate for city commission. The 2 men are sucked into a world of crime and political corruption in a darkly funny and ferociously absurd tale. A great big killer. Congrats to both Chris and Jessica.
Yay. All right, let us know if you guys are interested in those books and you'll be entered to win. All right, and as you guys know, membership has its privileges. And if you are on Facebook, you should become a member, I hope you will, of our private members-only group called the Killer Author Clubhouse. And that's the place where we have the really hardcore killers, where we share book recommendations and have all sorts of murderous fun and hold giveaways. And we also, every episode, as you may recall, pick a winner from the clubhouse to get some swag from us. You know, t-shirts, mugs, candles, totes, you name it, we have it. And tonight's winner is Shannon Burhop Brzezinski. Oh, sorry if I said that wrong, but you are the winner, Shannon. So reach out to one of the killers and we will send some swag your way.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Yay. And Lisa, we have really great news. You have survived the Killer Author Club, and we bestow upon you this wonderful badge that you can print out, hang on your wall, wear proudly.
Over your face.
Killer Crabs did not come for you tonight.
I love it. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, we're so happy you made the time to be with us. Really, it's really special to get to talk to you. And you wowed us all, and I didn't get to any questions because you were so interesting, and we just were wowed. So sorry again, guys. But Lisa, thank you. And that's it for tonight.
So much fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll be back in just 1 week with the fabulous... Why do I have to say his name every time? With the fabulous Chris B at 9 p.m.
Bojalian.
Bojalian. He is amazing. He's like an Energizer bunny on steroids. You're going to have a blast.
We're going to start with him pronouncing his name and teaching us all how to say it.
Exactly, because every script I get his name and I'm like, no, and I've said it differently every time. So I'm just going to say Chris B. That's what I'm saying. But we all know who we're talking about, and I loved his book. Okay. And Chris will be talking all about the Princess of Las Vegas, and that's next week. So don't forget to join us. In the meantime, please find us all wasting entirely too much time on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those social media places. And for all the information you need about upcoming shows, visit killerauthorclub.com. And thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Thanks again, Lisa.
Good night.
I get tired.